I'm Stephen Vandiver, your host. The focus on Reiki is to spotlight one of the world's fastest growing self-care, spiritual, and personal development tools. Everyone can learn this calming, relaxing, and healing technique and channel universal life force energy. As we come to know that our universe and everything around us, including our physical bodies, is made entirely of energy, learning to effectively work with this energy is key. Reiki is a priceless addition to your personal spiritual development toolbox. Our guest tonight is Kathleen Prasad, Animal Reiki Teacher. Sometimes called the godmother of the Animal Reiki movement, Kathleen is a global leader in the profession. She is founder of Animal Reiki Source, which offers the world's first extensive and specialized curriculum and training program in Animal Reiki. Her teachings are highly regarded by animal lovers, veterinarians, animal care professionals, as well as shelter and sanctuary staff and volunteers around the world. She's also co-founder and president of the Shelter Animal Reiki Association, SARA, the first nonprofit of its kind, promoting the use of Reiki meditation in animal shelters, sanctuaries, and rescues. Kathleen directs SARA's educational program with members across the U.S. as well as in Canada, Europe, India, and Australia. She's taught Reiki to the staff and volunteers of many animal organizations, including BrightHaven, Remus Memorial Horse Sanctuary, the Care Foundation, Best Friends Animal Society, the San Francisco SPCA, and Guide Dogs for the Blind. Kathleen has authored Healing Virtues, Animal Reiki Practitioner Code of Ethics, and several influential books in the field. She's been published in magazines such as the Journal of the American Holistic Veterinary Association, Natural Horse Magazine, Equine Wellness Magazine, Dogs Naturally Magazine, and has been featured on many radio and TV programs. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Kathleen.
I'm so happy to be here, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited, and I'll try to keep on track. But love to hear how everything started for you. Where was that spark early on that brought all this about?
Well, thanks for asking. Normally when I think about the beginnings of my Reiki journey, it goes into my late 20s when my mother-in-law asked me to try a Reiki treatment, because she had had this amazing healing from a Reiki session. And so she wanted me to experience that. And of course I had to humor her because she's my mother-in-law. But I kind of thought sounded kind of crazy. But I really felt the benefits of it so deeply just within the first few minutes of laying down on the table, and the first hand position that this Reiki teacher did for me was really, really powerful. But I was thinking, when you asked me that question a little earlier, I was thinking, what is the real spark for this journey of animal Reiki? Because it's not just a Reiki journey. It's like centered around animals. And I have to say, I can go all the way back into my childhood. So I was always a very shy child, and I had a lot of problems with anxiety from the time I was 3 or 4. And so animals always were comforts. They always were the ones that I would run to when I felt anxious, and they would make me feel better. My dog that I grew up with was always at my side at every moment, so they were really my best friends. But there's one particular moment that I think really shaped my animal Reiki journey, and it was when I was about 12 or 13 years old, and my cat at the time had a batch of kittens. And we discovered that she'd had her kittens, and one of them, there was something wrong with the kitten and was struggling to breathe and wasn't doing well. And so I held the kitten in my hands and I prayed over the kitten. I prayed as hard as I could. And I remember feeling so helpless. And I asked the universe, please, if there's anything that I can do to relieve the suffering of this little being, please let me do it. I'll do anything. And the kitten died in my hands. And it was a very for being such a young teen, it was a very difficult moment. But that, I think, really stuck with me. And later on, when I learned Reiki, I found myself early in my journey at a shelter with a kitten who'd been poisoned and whose mother I think she had drank antifreeze or something. And so she had died and all the other kittens had died. They had all come in seizuring and had all died. And there was only one kitten left. And they said, Kathleen, this little kitten is tiny and he's very sick and he's probably going to pass away, but can you just sit with him while he passes? And when I sat in front of the cage that time, I was about 30 years old, but there was a lot of deja vu in that moment that brought me back to that moment when I was young and faced that same situation. But now, in this moment, I had Reiki. I had something that I could do. And so I sat outside his little cage, and he was tremoring, and he tried to open his eyes, but he had the third eyelid was sort of closed over his eyes, and he couldn't really lift his head. He kept kind of falling. And so I just sat outside the cage, and he struggled to come closer to me. He sensed that I was there, and he was trying to come closer. So I cupped my hands around him, and he rested his little tiny head on the edge of my hand. And he took a little sigh. And I sat there with him with Reiki, and my heart feeling that feeling I felt so many years before of, please, if there's anything I can do, let me do it now. But if it's time for the little kitten to pass, I've been here before. I can do this. I'm with you in this moment. And we sat together for about an hour. And after about an hour's time, the kitten really didn't move from that position, leaning into my hands. But after about an hour, he suddenly woke up and opened his eyes, and his eyes opened like all the way, like clear. And he looked at me, and he made a little meow, and then he scampered over and drank a ton of water. And I thought, he's going to make it. I couldn't even believe it. So I closed the cage and I ran into the director's office and I said, oh my God, he seems better. I think he's going to be okay. Please let me know. And sure enough, he did survive. He made it. They were able to put him in a foster home where he could be watched over and to get better. And so I think for me, the beauty of Reiki, it's not that every situation will always be solved. But we always have something we can do, and we never have to feel powerless again. Because we learn with Animal Reiki, we learn how to hold space, how to hold open-hearted, compassionate presence with an animal, even when they're suffering. And we learn how to be with that suffering in a place of peacefulness. Whereas normally, when an animal is suffering, we panic, right? Or we start worrying about, oh no, what's going to happen? Or we think, oh my God, I have to fix this. And we go in our mind all the things that we have to do. But Reiki gives us the power of presence, which I believe is our greatest healing power, is that open-hearted, compassionate presence. So I think for me, that's the beginning of my Reiki journey, is that moment as a young teen and holding that dying kitten in my hands. And when I found Reiki, that was the missing piece that I had been looking for my whole life.
Wow, that's beautiful. Wow. Talk a little bit about your Reiki training and how that came about to building basically your own Reiki school, Reiki University, Animal Reiki.
Well, I'm very blessed to have studied in 3 different lineages of Reiki. And the first lineage I studied in was sort of a Western lineage, Western meaning Takata-based lineage, but it wasn't real structured. It was more about intuition. But I learned a lot about Takata and what she had brought, the teachings she had brought, and the precepts that she taught, and so on. And so that was a really beautiful class. And my teacher, Martha Lucas, who is an acupuncturist in Denver now, she actually also taught a little bit about Chinese medicine principles, because she's a Chinese medicine doctor. So it was great for me because I was coming from Kung Fu. I was a senior student in a Kung Fu school. And so I did a lot of Chinese martial arts. And so to be able to have sort of that woo-woo, what is Reiki? I'm not sure about this, but have that kind of tempered with the Chinese elements and that type of thing kind of mingled in really helped me to put it into my understanding of energy with my martial arts training. So that was really fortunate, I think, that it helped make sense to me. And then I was able to do my second training with the Reiki Alliance with Meg Sullivan, who's a teacher here in Oakland in the East Bay. And the Reiki Alliance teaches very strict Takata teachings. So they are really holding the Takata lineage very beautifully through the generations. And so I learned that lineage and studied with her for about maybe 7 or 8 years. And so my first book that I wrote, Animal Reiki, that some of you may have read, really comes from my teachings from those two teachers and my understanding of Reiki in the terms of being a hands-on healing therapy. And that's really how I originally learned it. And then in 2006, I discovered my third Reiki teacher, who is Franz Stina of the International House of Reiki. And his lineage is meditation-based. And that, for me, when I sat in his first class, I thought, oh my God, this is it. Because I found with the animals that I couldn't use hand positions for many of the animals. And that even if I would focus on sending energy with my mind to this or that problem, the animals would get up and walk away. So they were even disturbed by my thoughts. So I was like, well, I can't use hand positions. I can't focus and think about sending the power symbol or the mental healing symbol to this or that problem. So I ended up just sitting there. And at some point I thought, am I still doing Reiki? I don't know. I feel like I am, but all my tools aren't working with the animals the way I want them to, because I used all those tools for me, the hands-on healing I loved for myself, for my human friends, and all of those tools worked great for people. But with the animals, it wasn't really working. So I had been kind of letting go of all that stuff and wondering, is this still Reiki? And so when I met Franz and took his class and began studying those teachings, then it really made sense to me. I'm like, okay, now I can focus on the Reiki meditation. And so that's really, for me, what Animal Reiki is it's meditating with animals for healing. And that's how I really describe it to people. So we focus on the meditation aspect of the Reiki teachings and sort of let go of the therapeutic aspect, only because the animals are so sensitive to the energy. So with this more meditative approach, then we can work with all kinds of animals, even if they have been abused, if they're feral, maybe they're exotic animals like a tiger, which obviously you wouldn't want to go in with the tiger, or if they have been traumatized at the hands of humans and don't trust humans, then this meditation approach can still be used because it's very open, very gentle. And so anyway, I've studied with Franz since 2006, I guess now, and learned so much. Really grateful to all of his teachings. So now my manuals really are built upon the foundation of the Usui Reiki Ryoho lineage that Franz teaches. And that is really combined with I call it the let animals lead approach of Animal Reiki. And that approach is very unique. In some ways, it's almost the opposite of the way we work with humans in our approach. And it's something that I've developed over the past 20 years through my work with so many animals, so many species, and in places all over the world.
Yeah.
So that's what I work with now.
I was reading into that a little bit, and you talk about the human ego and kind of a situation there. You know, a well-meaning person, but not doing anything that's honoring the animal. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I think it's even more than ego. It's about the way that we're programmed as humans. Because I think, you know, for me, if I go, like, let's say I come to you for a Reiki treatment, right? Mm-hmm. And if I were to come to your place and say, okay, can I have a Reiki treatment? I'm not feeling well, or I have a headache, or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. Then I probably would tell you what was wrong and say, can you put your hands on my head? I have a headache, or whatever. But if you were to say, just lay down on the table, I'm going to go sit in the corner and do a meditation. And then after an hour, you come out of the corner and say, okay, we're all done. That'll be $100, please. I'd be like, what are you doing? That's the worst Reiki treatment ever, because, you know, I want the hands-on healing, and I want you to put your hands on, you know, my sore elbow. So please focus on this. So it's almost the way that we are programmed is we're very tactile, and we like to focus. What helps us to heal is to focus our minds on what the issue is in a gentle way, but that feels good to us. So it's like, okay, he's focusing on my elbow, you know, and it's like helps us to sort of almost like give ourselves permission to heal ourselves in a way. Yeah. And so animals is very different. So I think that I always say, you know, we mean well, but we're really coming from the human perspective. We have to let go of that humanness in order to honor the preferences and sensitivities of the animals. So the first thing to know is that the animals don't need to feel touch to feel the energy. Mm-hmm. Whereas we do, for the most part. That's the way we energetically connect, is really with our hands. It's the way that we show compassion, right?
Right.
If somebody is sad, we put our arm around them. You know, if we want to offer comfort, we reach out and take someone's hand. So it's the way that we're programmed, but animals not so much. So we have to sort of let go of our hands when we approach animals and let them approach us. And that's a whole different, it's really the opposite, because we usually think, oh, I have to go put my hands on them.
Right.
No, we don't. And then the second piece of it is the mental focus. So if let's say, because for many years I worked with anxiety. So when I would go to heal myself, I would sort of set my intention that I would like to heal my anxiety, and working on that, maybe put my hands over my heart or wherever I felt the anxiety in my body, maybe in my head, or, you know, and that's really how I would do my self-treatments. Was very comforting and helpful for me. But with animals, it's really the opposite of that. So if an animal is anxious and you're sitting with them, and I've done this before, I'll be sitting with the cat, and let's say the cat has anxiety, and I'll just think to myself, okay, we're going to send Reiki to the anxiety to heal the anxiety. It's like as soon as I think about what's wrong, the animal goes and walks off. Yeah. And so we have to train our mind to let go of what's wrong and to go deeper to see what's right, or to see that perfection in that moment. And so it's so whereas if I was getting a treatment, I'd say, you know, you would probably say, okay, so, you know, how are you? Is there anything you want to focus on? And I would want to focus on what I want to heal. Yeah. But animals, it's really the opposite of that. So I think I don't want us to beat ourselves up, because remember, our precept is to be compassionate to yourself and others. So it's not that you're a bad person because you did Reiki for your animal and they ran away because you did it the way you like it. It's just that you're coming from your human perspective. And so what I teach in my classes is how to sort of let go of that human perspective and be able to really focus on the Reiki meditations and letting go of everything else. And when we do that, the space becomes very quiet, very expansive, and the animals step into the space and get very excited about it and like very drawn to us. We become like an animal magnet. That's what I tell my students, learn how to be a magnet for animal healing, you know?
Right.
So.
Now, can you walk me through how a meditation works with animals? Do they listen to a guided meditation, or how does that work?
So really what I have a series of practices that I teach, and we can even do a short meditation practice if you'd like, and I can sort of model what that is.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Do you want to do that now?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do it. Okay. So everybody who's listening, who's with us, I would love it if your animals are in the room with you. Mm-hmm. But if not, that's okay. We're going to bring them to our mind and our heart. So the first thing we have to do is to set our intention. So normally if we set an intention, maybe for ourselves, we might be thinking to set an intention to heal this or that issue. And so you might right now have an animal with you that has a specific issue that you want to be healed. But instead of setting our intention to heal that specific issue, we're going to set a little different intention. Okay? So let's do that now. And we'll just go into Gasho just to help us to focus. And we're going to set our intention to dedicate all of the energy created through this Reiki meditation to our animal. And we're going to widen that. We're going to dedicate it to all animals. And even to all beings. And then just relax your hands on your lap, palms up or palms down, and close your eyes and take a nice deep cleansing breath. And let it out slowly. And we're going to focus on the precepts for today only. Do not anger. Do not worry. Be grateful. Practice diligently. Show compassion to yourself and others. And now we're going to do some Hara breathing. Your Hara is your lower belly, the energy center there. And we're going to, with each inhale, visualize the breath coming in through your nose as a beautiful healing light, filling your body all the way down to the Hara, the lower belly. And on the out breath, imagine this light can expand out of your skin into your aura and into the universe. I'm breathing in this beautiful healing light, all the way filling your body, all the way down to the Hara. And breathing out, expanding this light all around you. Beautiful space of light. And breathing in again, filling your body with light, connecting with your lower belly. And breathing out, expanding this light. And breathing in this light, connecting. And breathing out, expanding. And breathing in, connecting. And breathing out, expanding. And so letting your breath just relax. And sitting in this space, I'd like you to feel how your body is filled with light, but this light expands, so it's almost as if your edges are a little bit softened, so that you are the light, and the light is you. And this light is the peace of the universe. Compassion of the universe, and the balance of the universe. And bringing to your mind and heart your animal, or animals. I'd like you to just very gently invite them in to share this beautiful space of healing light. Completely up to them. If thoughts come up, let them go like clouds floating by. Just relax into the light, holding that as a beautiful gift or offering for your animal. And know that all healing possibility exists in this moment. For today only, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, practice diligently, show compassion to yourself and others. And taking a moment to thank your animal for connecting with you in this beautiful space, you can bring your hands back to Gasho. Thanking them for all they bring to your life. They're such beautiful teachers. And when you're ready, setting your intention to finish, take a nice deep cleansing breath and slowly come back and open your eyes.
Wow, beautiful. Beautiful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, everyone will love that, especially on the replay. I'd love to talk about, I know we talked about the Reiki training and when that happened. So when did you start developing this Animal Reiki school, basically, this university?
Back in 2004 was when I founded Animal Reiki Source.
Okay.
And so in those days, I didn't even have a manual. I just had some handouts of tips because I had been volunteering with shelter animals for several years at that point. And so I had sort of taken notes and journaling about my experiences and what worked and what didn't work. And so I kind of just had some handouts of tips for when you're working with animals. And so it wasn't until, much later after I learned through Franz Stina that I started to incorporate specific teachings like the Hara breathing that I just led you through is something that I learned from Franz that he teaches in his classes and some other meditations which he teaches that are traditional Japanese meditations that I've incorporated. And so that is really wonderful because it's kind of one of the other things I teach is the chanting of the mantras, the Reiki mantras, which isn't often taught, but animals love chanting. So it's really been fun to be able to incorporate these traditional Japanese practices and with working with animals and over the years. So it's really developed from, when I started to work with Franz in 2006 and 2007 all the way up through to the present day. So now we have each of my manuals is over 100 pages long. I have the Shoden, Okuden, and Shinpuden manuals. And of course, I also have developed other programs based on different species. Like I have my horse Reiki book called Heart to Heart with Horses. I have Reiki for dogs as well. And my latest book on the Animal Reiki Code of Ethics. So each of my books kind of takes certain teachings and talks about it in kind of the same approach, but in slightly different ways. And so I think it's fun. Some people want to kind of learn a general overview. And I do teach some online classes for that as well. Other people want to like dive in really deep with a certain species because maybe they're really a dog person. And so they really want to focus on that, or they're really a horse person. And so I've, over the years, have developed kind of all these different programs depending on like what people are like, oh, could you teach this? Could you teach that? And so it's always evolving and always changing.
That's beautiful. Do you know Kathy Milanowski?
No,
Okay,
no, I don't.
I think she's in Wisconsin. Sorry, Kathy. But she made a comment, and I don't normally do this, but there it is. It says, my kitty ran across the room while you were speaking the whole time. When you started the meditation, he ran up and down the stairs playfully, and then we invited him into the light and the healing, and he jumped on my lap and sang to me. He loved it. When you finished, he jumped up, ran downstairs. Thank you from me. And Kaleidoscope. That's her.
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Her orange tabby. So.
Aww. Blessings.
You know, I want to dive into healing virtues, and really, you know, a lot of this material, you know, you've been developing over time, and this is updated with some additional content, but particularly the guiding principles. How were these developed?
So the guiding principles are basically what formed the basis for the Animal Reiki Code of Ethics, which I wrote back in 2007 and only finally published the book 10 years later. So better late than never. But what I found when I first started Animal Reiki was it primarily was a practice for myself, but then my animals began to come to me, and I was walking dogs at a shelter and they began to come to me. And so I realized, wow, I can help myself and I can help the animals. But then I sort of started to see it in a wider scope over the years of practice between when I started in 1998 until like 2007 when I wrote the Code of Ethics, because it became a bigger, a lot of more issues, a bigger issue to work with than my friends who were just doing human Reiki. Because with human Reiki, you know, you have the person comes and asks for a treatment and you can work with them. But with the animal, the animal might want Reiki, but what if the person doesn't know what it is? Or what if they don't want Reiki, but their animal does? Or what if the person brings the animal for Reiki, but the animal's actually fine and the person's the one that has the problem? Or what if you're working in a shelter and all the animals have issues, but all the staff has horrible compassion fatigue? We can't ignore these kind of things. Plus, veterinarians are in charge of the animals' healing programs, so we want to be able to work with the vets so they can understand. So as I was working over the years with clients and in shelters, I began to become aware of these other issues, and nobody really knew answers to those questions, because in those days Animal Reiki wasn't its own separate entity, and so it was something that developed over many years. And having worked with the Code of Ethics for 10 years, then I was ready to really write the book about it. The purpose of the book, I'll show it to everybody. Here it is, Healing Virtues. And the purpose of this book is to support every person who works with Animal Reiki to work in the most ethical ways possible. And the commitments are to follow a path for yourself, for healing, and for the animals, but also for the animals' people, to support the animals' people, and also to support the veterinarians and other animal professionals in the community, and also to make a commitment to educate others. So one of the things that I tell my students, even my Reiki 1 students, I'm like, I know you're beginners, and I'm sorry to say this, but you already have to educate people because it's a little different with humans, because people come to you already wanting Reiki for the most part, if you've set up your shop. And so there's kind of an understanding. But with the animals, that's not always the case. Sometimes people don't understand what Reiki is, or the person wants Reiki for the animal, but the animal might not want it. How do we navigate that whole thing? And so that's really, for me, the primary thing is protecting and honoring the animals and what they want and need, but also recognizing our important role in the community, because how we share Reiki with animals and how we benefit the animals is people will understand what Reiki is through our practice and how their animals are helped, or if their animal runs away, right?
Right.
And same with veterinarians. The veterinarians are very important in our world for the animals' healing. So we need to build bridges and help to educate the veterinarians so that they're on board and understand this is not harmful. This is very beneficial. This is very gentle, right? And so I think all of those things kind of created the need for the code of ethics, because at the time there were code of ethics for different Reiki associations. And of course, we started SARA in 2008, the Shelter Animal Reiki Association in 2008. But I wasn't really ready to start SARA until I had a code of ethics for us. And so I was trying to really think, in this moment for us and for the animals, but also as wide as the community of animal lovers, that it's all part of what we do. And that's all, each of those relationships we build, starting with the relationship with ourselves and our own commitment to heal ourselves, is so vital to our success, and our relationship with the animals and how we honor them. But then how do we honor the animal's person and support them and the animal's family, human and animal? How do we support? That's really important. And others in the animal healing community, and on and see how that widens, how it just gets so wide. And that's really important, to see ourselves as part of this beautiful web of support for animals in our world.
Yeah, and talking about that, and honoring the animal, and also you talk about healing responses, and how does and I love animals, and I do Reiki on the dogs and such, but how does one learn how to know what the animals want, what they are open to, let's say?
So I think the most important thing for me is to learn how to listen, to learn how to hold a space without expectation. And that's what I teach in my classes. That's why we always focus on the meditation. And so like we focused on the one that we did a minute ago, we set our intention very openly. We wanted to let go of our thoughts like clouds, and we focused on the precepts and the breathing, and just inviting the animals into that space, but really focusing on the breathing and the light and the precepts, and that's it. We weren't thinking about, okay, what do I need to send Reiki to this or that? So that's really, the important part is to let go of all that and to just be with what is. So in the beginning, when we learn how to, like a great exercise to do, those of you that have horses or farm animals, is to just go outside in their pasture or outside their pasture where you can see them, and just sit with them for like a whole day. Don't do anything, bring some water, some snacks, you can take some breaks, but just sit with them. And I did this so much with my horses in the beginning when I was wondering about Reiki, and how do we connect, is to just be with them, because we learn so much by just quietly observing who they are and their timeline. A horse's time is very different from a human time. We're always rushing and multitasking. Horses are very, they can spend the whole day just grazing, and it's very grounding, and we slow down and we're quiet. And it's in those moments of quiet that we can understand so much of spiritual wisdom and what it means to be compassionate, talking about the precepts, what it means to let go of anger, what it means to let go of our worry. We can feel overwhelming gratitude and compassion in these moments of quiet with the animals. And so it's really training ourselves to let go of doing Reiki to our animals and learn how to be Reiki with our animals. And when we do that, then everything just flows and unfolds, and it's nothing we have to direct. We can let go of the need to direct anything.
Now, I've heard of, dogs being attuned. I actually had dog in a master class, who had been in many master classes and Reiki 1, Reiki 2 classes before. And I've heard of horses, being attuned with Reiki. Is that something you get into, or can you comment on that?
So my philosophy is a little bit different about the attunements. For me, the attunement is a beautiful ritual. It's a ritual that helps us to remember our true self. This is the way that my teacher Franz teaches it, that it helps us to get in touch with our true essence, so that when we're giving someone attunement, we're not actually giving them something they don't already have. We're creating a space to help them remember their inner light, which is always perfect and always bright. So for me, in the context of what a Reiju does, it's a beautiful offering to an animal, except that it's a ritual. And animals are often disturbed by our rituals. And that's why, we don't have a prescribed set of hand positions for animal treatment, or we're not focusing on the chakras for animal treatment, because the rituals, which for humans, like if I, again, was, I love the ritual, I love all of that, it works great for me. But because animals are so different, I always feel that it's better to just sit opposite the animal and just hold a space with them. Because otherwise, it's almost for us, that ritual for us, like, oh, I want to give you an attunement. It's more about what we want. But I have to tell you a funny story. I was teaching a Reiki 3 class, and I was standing next to an empty chair because I was going to have one of the students come so I could demonstrate the attunement on them for the others. And I was telling them this story. Don't attune animals because the ritual disturbs them, and you should just, don't worry about it. And one of the cats, this is at BrightHaven, one of the cats came and sat in the chair and stared at me. Like, hey, Kathleen, never say never. Don't you be acting like you know everything. Because I'm telling you right now, you're going to do this attunement on me right now. So I'm all, well, in this case, because it was a cat named Neil, he was such a great cat. I'm like, because Neil is in the chair, I guess he's asking for a reiju, which is the Japanese word for attunement, which we use. I'm like, so I went over and I'm all, so the first position would be, and I started doing it, and he sat there like this. That's right, girl. That's right. You're going to attune me right now. And so I told the students, well, obviously, if the animal asks for it and wants it, then go for it. But don't feel like if I don't do an attunement on my animal, they can't participate and be a healer and assist. Animals are, to me, they are born Reiki masters. We have to practice. That's why for me, Reiki is like a system of practice. But animals already are in that space. They don't practice the way we do. But, my dog Dakota was a great example of a healer dog. When I would teach Reiki in my home, in the early days, I had classes in my home, and Dakota was one of the subjects people would practice on. But in the beginning, when we'd go around the table and introduce ourselves, he would put his head on each person's lap as they introduced themselves. And they would put their hand on his head, and inevitably they would feel emotional, and just, you could see them just opening up with his presence. But I never gave him any kind of attunement or a reiju or anything, but we were always sitting together in that space, and it was incredibly healing. We helped each other. So, that's just been my personal experience, is that the rituals are not important for animals the way they are for us. So just to be very respectful, and always let the animals guide you and lead the way. And as soon as you're like, okay, I'm going to do this for my animal, now you're in charge, then be careful, because I always say let animals lead. So if the animal's not leading you, then I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. Now, you've really built quite a business, quite a reputation. I know a lot of work, a lot of hours put in. What's been the most challenging part along the way?
Well, I think probably over the years, it's been finding a way to talk about animal Reiki in a way that doesn't just make people turn off. Because the society or the group in society that I work with the most through my nonprofit, animal rescuers, animal people, veterinarians, people who aren't necessarily spiritual. So how do we talk about it and teach it and work with it in a way that we don't lose all those people? And so that's what I found has been the biggest challenge. And I'm still evolving my teachings and the words that I use. I recently did a conference in Scotland. It was a holistic dog conference. And, a lot of the people in the audience were skeptics of Reiki and were there to see somebody else, not me, speak. And they were kind of like sitting there with their arms crossed, when I got up to speak. And I'm like, okay, so how am I going to talk to these people? And so how I really see animal Reiki is that it's a mindfulness practice. And that's because our animals are so in tune. So we don't have to have all these rituals and do all of these things that we do with each other as humans, because the animals are to me, they're more highly evolved, but they're so much more sensitive to energy. And so that's been the biggest, I think for me, that's been the biggest challenge is just continually refining my language and making it, finding the essence and the simplicity of what it is, because animals don't want all the gobbledygook. They just want that pure light and that pure presence. And that's what works with them. So I have to find ways to explain that to the people who love their animals.
Beautiful. Now, of all the people that have come through your Animal Reiki training courses, do you have other Animal Reiki teachers out there teaching your curricula?
Yes, I do, all over the world, and I'm so proud of them. We have there are a lot of anyone who takes my Reiki 3 class has permission to use my manuals in their classes. So I do have hundreds of Reiki 3 teachers out there using my manuals. Also, my SARA teachers are very close to my heart because they are the ones who work specifically with shelters and sanctuaries. And we have a whole program of teachers working all around the world. One of my Reiki teachers, Alison McKinnon, who lives in Scotland, who spoke at the same conference I was at, she actually has developed a relationship with a dog sanctuary, and they rescue some other animals in India called Tulfa, Tree of Life for Animals. And so she goes over there and has taught the staff and volunteers, and goes over and she volunteers for like a month, and she'll work with the animals. So we have these programs of Animal Reiki in these different organizations all over the world, thanks to my teachers, because I can't be everywhere. So my focus for a long time has been educating others and teaching others to do Reiki, not only, in their world and with the animals, but also teaching this method to others, because I realized that I can't be everywhere at once, and I can do a lot more good for animals by teaching people how to do this. And so that's really my goal, is to give people the tools so that they can go out and teach more people, and more animals will be helped.
That's beautiful. Now, you talked a little bit about the different training programs that you have. You have some online courses that are right on your website. The link's right there. And these are more like workshops. This isn't on your website. Those courses aren't actually the Reiki training, Animal Reiki training. So you've been teaching that in person, but you've recently put together an online class. Now it's a live class, but it's at a distance. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just launched this last week. It already sold out. So I'm taking...
I saw that. I'm
taking...
announce it, but it's like, it's all gone.
but I'm taking... I have a wait list, and I'll probably open more sessions soon. But one of the challenges that I have faced is a lot of the people that I work with, animal people, are rescuers, or they live on a farm and they have a lot of special needs animals, or they live in a rural area and they take care of 100 animals on this farm or whatever. A lot of my people who contact me from all over the world are in these kind of situations. These people can't go, they can't travel. They can't leave their animals. There's nobody who could watch over their animals like this. And so I've tried to find, you can take a little workshop or read my book, and you can, but it's frustrated me to not be able to really give them all the tools of the system of Reiki, which is so powerful. And so I've created this 8-week webinar for Animal Reiki Level 1 that's going to cover everything in live webinars with interaction. I'll do attunements every week. I'll guide meditations every week. And we'll go through all of these steps to give people the tools to be able to really dive deep into the system of Reiki. And my goal with this Level 1 online class is that every person who takes it comes away with a passion for a lifelong animal Reiki practice. Lifelong. So there's going to be, homework every night. It's 8 weeks long, so that's a lot of practice. And I'm really excited to be launching this program. It starts in July, and so we'll see how it goes. But it's a way for me to reach people that otherwise would not be able to help their animals, in this way. So I'm very excited with technology that we have this ability to, look at you and I are having this conversation, but all the people that are listening to us and that might, maybe their animals might be helped. I mean, it's really amazing how we can spread and share this gift of Reiki.
Yeah. Now, the class is 8 weeks, and this is the first one that you'll be doing. Mm-hmm. Do you have the lessons portioned out that kind of align with how you do it in class, so you would anticipate the same format for the next class? Yes,
it'll be the same. Every week is a specific theme, and then he has specific things to read, and I have links to articles and videos to watch each week based on that theme. So you cover 8 different themes. Also, you have to do homework based on that theme and come back and share that homework with the group. And so we all get the benefits of each other's work in this. I'm limiting it to 8 people per class so that everybody is able to share each week. Wow. So it's going to be really fun. And it's actually, I was thinking about my in-person Reiki one is, 2 days, and I can't get as in depth as I'm going to in this online. So it's actually going to be even more thorough, which is really exciting. So I'm excited to see how everything unfolds. And I have a great group of people already lined up, and I already am taking names for the next session. So I think it's going to be a really good program. And of course, everybody who's taking this, it's like a pilot program. So I'm going to ask for feedback and suggestions to make it better from this group of people. So I appreciate everybody who's willing to take it for this first time with me. But, I was thinking back that I've taught over 60 level 1 classes in person. So I thought, well, I can do this, because I never recommend people these days with technology. A lot of people go right onto the online classes. They get their Reiki 3 and they're teaching online. And for me, I feel like you miss a piece when you don't teach in person with that live interaction and the kind of questions that come up and the classroom management things that happen. So I think it's really important, even though we have this beautiful technology, to teach in person first and to keep teaching in person. I do have Reiki 1 and 2 happening in the next couple of months here at a local dog sanctuary, Lily's Legacy, that I'm excited to teach. So I still continue to teach in person as much as I can. I'll be in New York teaching a Reiki 3 in June. I'll be in England in September teaching a code of ethics training and a Reiki 3. So I'm doing as much in person as well, but I really want to reach and support and help as many people as I can. So this is giving me the opportunity to do that. And for the animals, I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I was amazed when I heard that, it's live, it's live. So that's a beautiful thing and a great way to reach out there. So what's new and exciting coming up for you here in the near future? I know we talked about a lot of stuff. Oh, I know. Let's talk other amazing animal Reiki stories, other animals situations.
Well, probably some of my funnest, most amazing animal Reiki stories come from the Care Foundation. The Care Foundation is an exotic animal sanctuary in Florida, and I go there every February to teach a Reiki 3 class. And I've been going there since 2011, so once a year, so quite a few times. And the animals have become friends, and they know now when the Reiki people come, oh, it's Reiki time to teach. And they have tigers, bears, crocodiles, and alligators, monkeys, parrots. They also have raccoons and foxes. And I'm trying to think of there's so many animals there. It's hard to remember them all. They have over 200 animals. So when we go there, it's very exciting and fun for people to see how this practice is deeper than species. So you can even work with snakes, for example. I had a very amazing experience they have a room of venomous snakes, and they're not loose in the room. It's they're in little glass cases safely, along the walls. But I went in to practice Reiki with the snakes one of the days that I was there teaching, and the other students were kind of afraid to go in there. So Leah and I went in there to work with the snakes. And so I went in there thinking to myself, oh yeah, I'm going to share Reiki with the snakes. And then I was thinking, actually, I need some healing, because it was actually after my surgery that I had for breast cancer. And so I was still recovering. I was in some pain with my arm and, wasn't feeling that great. And so it was funny because I was setting my intention, and I suddenly thought, well, maybe I'll ask them for some healing too, but I thought, well, but it's snakes, so I don't know what will happen. But I recognized that snakes must be healers, because all animals are. And although I didn't know a lot about working with them, I thought, what the heck? Yeah. And I had the most amazing experience. So after the snakes were all sleeping, and there was one right in front of me, it was like a 6-foot long rattlesnake. And he was all curled up. His name was Cain, and he's passed away now. But they have his babies, or his grandbabies, live there now. But anyway, he was all curled up. And as soon as I set my intention, I felt this really strong energy in my lower belly, really powerful, kind of scared me because it was so strong. And then I thought, well, you asked for it, Kathleen. So this is connecting with snake energy. So just relax. And he woke up, and he came up with just his face, and he looked at me right at eye level through the glass. And then he started to sway back and forth like this, very slowly. And without thinking, I brought my arm up, my sore arm that had so many issues, and I started mirroring him with my arm. And we stood there like that for about, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes. And at some point I realized I hadn't blinked in a really long time. I realized I was in this weird snake trance, like a movie or something. It was so weird. And so I'm like, oh my God, what time is it? And it had been 30 or 40 minutes, and it just was like this, And so I kind of came to, I don't know, I was in another space, so I wasn't aware of anything. And all of a sudden I kind of snapped back into my awareness, and I'm and I looked, and all the snakes on the wall, there was a white cobra, there were some boas below, there were some other, there was 6 or 7 snakes on the wall. They were all doing this with us. And so then I kind of snapped back and said, oh, it's time to finish. And I said, Leah, look at the snakes. And she turned around to look at them, because she was on the other side of the room working with those snakes. And as soon as she looked at them, they all stopped in midair and went down back to sleep. And she said, Kathleen, what happened? That was weird. And I said, I don't know. And so we walked out, and I was telling her, I feel kind of dizzy or something. I feel so strange. And I realized as I was walking back to the group to share with them, because we had all gone out and done Reiki with different animals, I realized that my arm, the pain in my arm was like 50% gone or 60% gone. Like I felt so much better than I had felt since my surgery, like immediately.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, oh my God, like that was so unexpected. So I love to share that story. One, because people are always afraid of snakes, and two, because we always think, oh, I'm the Reiki practitioner, so I'm here to help you. But sometimes the animals are the ones who help us. And even the most unexpected animal can be a compassionate teacher for you. And so I think that's important to remember, no matter what animal you're working with, to see them as that teacher.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Kathleen. I really appreciate you. It's been a beautiful show. You shared so much amazing information. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
Absolutely. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back next Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, with another episode of Reiki Currents. Blessings and namaste.